Children in Haiti return to school last Monday in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. The U.S. administration has finalized a plan to allow oil and gas drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has noted that new presidential elections could be held following a referendum to approve a new constitution. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Laura Palmeiro. Children in Haiti returned to school last Monday in the midst of coronavirus pandemic. The COVID-19 situation in the Caribbean country continues to represent a public health threat. However, authorities have decided to allow the schools, including primary education, to resume activities. The country also faces the fact of limited resources to battle the pandemic. According to the United Nations, some 35% of the Haitians lack basic drinking water services and 2/3 have limited or no sanitation services.
Education is the basis of development for all countries. No country can work without education, so it's good that the schools reopen for children and for their future tomorrow.
And in Bolivia, where the president of the Supreme Electoral Tribunal, Salvador Romero, ratified this Monday that October 18th is the definitive date for general elections. The announcement comes after the de facto authorities were forced to sign into law the new date, preventing a further delay after social movements and the Bolivian Workers' Center staged nationwide protests and general strike. The movements have stressed that they remain on guard should be de facto authorities attempt to move to prevent the vote being held once again. In Brazil, dozens of members of the Kayapo indigenous community have blocked the Trans-Amazonian Highway to protest against deforestation, as well as the lack of support provided by the Jair Bolsonaro's government to protect them from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Kayapo people blame authorities for the deaths of 4 of their elders and infections of dozens more on their land in southern Para state. Leaders said people from outside their territory had spread the novel coronavirus among them because there were no restrictions on entry to their land. They noted they have few doctors, scarce personal protective equipment, and no nearby intensive care unit beds for COVID-19 patients, and called for the government to provide urgent assistance. And indigenous communities continue to denounce the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, which President Jair Bolsonaro continues to deny, despite data from his own government showing the rising number of fires destroying the region. Environmental organizations have denounced that fires have spread, consuming more than 40,000 hectares of the wetlands of Mato Grosso state, as the fire department announced that it was having problems containing the flames. The fires have already destroyed 70% of the São Francisco do Perigara Ranch, the largest sanctuary for the endangered blue macaw parrot, home to 15% of the world's population of the species. Experts stress that fires are typically not sparked naturally, but intentionally started to illegally clear land for farming. Chilean police forces repressed demonstrators who mobilized to show support for Mapuche spiritual leader Celestino Córdoba, who has been on hunger strike for over 100 days. The demonstration, also calling for the release of all Mapuche political prisoners, was held in the Chilean city of Nueva Imperial, where Córdoba was admitted to a healthcare institution. Protesters denounced that police forces used rubber bullets and tear gas to violently disperse them. Meanwhile, the Chilean government is expected to deliver an official response to Córdoba's latest request that his sentence be commuted to house arrest. A spokeswoman of the Mapuche leader have noted that he will conduct a dry hunger strike if his demands are not addressed by Sebastián Piñera government. And as Celestino Cordoba's health deteriorated as he reached 106 days of his hunger strike, a United Nations Human Rights Commission conducted a technical visit to the healthcare facility where he has been admitted in order to obtain information regarding the armed attacks that occurred against the Mapuche community last month. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro held a virtual meeting with leaders of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela last Monday to address strategies ahead of the parliamentary elections to be held in December. President Maduro noted that the slates of candidates for lawmakers and their substitutes have been 90% completed. A total of 107 political parties have officially registered to contest the elections. President Maduro also announced the creation of an election campaign command-named Darío Vivas to honor the revolutionary leader who recently passed away. The upcoming parliamentary elections will be the 25th election held since the Bolivarian Revolution came to power in 1999. On Monday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro highlighted the impunity of Colombian President Iván Duque following the ongoing massacres committed in the country.
Concern yourself, Iván Duque, with the massacre of 5 young people in Cali, or the massacre of 9 young people that took place yesterday. Concern yourself with the massacres of tens of hundreds of human rights activists in Colombia, the massacres in Colombia, or the increase in the COVID-19 pandemic that has led Colombia to reach number 8 in terms of COVID-19 cases and fatalities worldwide. Pay attention, Iván Duque, to the disaster in your country, our beloved Colombia.
And Colombia's most southwestern province saw a funeral service this Monday for the 8 people, including 1 minor, killed in the massacre over the weekend. In a tweet, the governor of Nariño Department, John Rojas, said that an incursion of armed men left 8 people dead and others injured in Samaniego, a village where the local radio host was assassinated last year. According to the governor, the Saturday evening massacre was followed up by the homicide of a minor early Sunday morning. Meanwhile, at least 20 people have been murdered in the last 60 days in the Colombian municipality of Samaniego, while those responsible for the crimes have not been brought to justice. Colombia has seen 3 massacres in the space of just 1 week. Meanwhile, the United Nations authorities have reported 33 violent massacres in Colombia so far this year. And we'll be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The U.S. administration has finalized a plan to allow oil and gas drilling in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Presidential candidate Joe Biden has slammed the plan, saying it would cause harm to wildlife, the ecosystem, and the native people, as the plan seeks to open the drilling before a potential change in U.S. leadership. The 19 million acre refuge is home to wildlife populations, including porcupine, caribou, and polar bears, and has been off limits to drilling for decades. Even when the Trump's decision is said to bring an opportunity for new jobs, the action comes in the midst of a current administration moves ahead the presidential elections in November, and it also joins other previous reductions in the land area of national parks. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States have reported a dysprotonia to infections rate affecting mainly Hispanic and non-white communities. The data was recorded in Utah, and according to the report, workers from those communities accounted for 73% of workplaces-associated COVID-19 cases between March 6 and June 5. Researchers highlighted that one of the reasons of the disparity in the number of cases could be the result of an overrepresentation of non-white and Hispanic workers in occupations that are considered frontline. They also added that those workers have less flexible work hours and fewer remote work options compared with workers who are white. China's National Intellectual Property Administration announced that it had granted the first invention patent to a domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine candidate. The AD5nCoV vaccine is co-developed by the Beijing Institute of Biotechnology, CanSino Biologics biopharmaceutical company, and a team led by Chinese military infectious disease expert Shen Wei. The patent application was filed on March 18th and approved on August 11th. According to the document published on the Intellectual Property Administration website, the vaccine can be mass-produced in a short time in the event of an outbreak. The granting of the patent further confirmed the vaccine's efficacy and safety, the CanSino company noted in a statement on Sunday. The latest COVID-19 figures in Spain have sparked fear among health experts and residents alike as the number of cases has increased substantially over the past 3 days.
There has been an increase of 16,000 cases in the past 3 days. It's true that these also include the portion of older cases, now included with some delayed, but the majority is of recent dates. Diagnosed with yesterday's date, Sunday, we have notified 1,833 cases, and in the last 7 days, within the dates of the last 7 days, we have notified people with the beginning of their symptoms, 5,327.
More than 21.8 million COVID-19 cases have now been confirmed worldwide, according to the latest data from the World Health Organization. The WHO also reported that the global death toll stands at over 773,000. On a positive note, more than 14.5 million patients have recovered from the virus. The United States and Brazil remain the hardest hit nations by the pandemic. The two countries also have the highest death toll in the world. The U.S. has reported over 173,000 deaths, while Brazil has confirmed nearly 108,000 fatalities. The United Nations Children's Fund Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa conducted an official visit to Lebanon this Monday in the wake of the devastating blast in Beirut.
We are committed to continuing to support the children of this country. We estimate that 100,000 children were directly impacted by the blast, but every child in Beirut is affected. We estimate that in greater Beirut area there's around 600,000 children. Working with the schools that have been affected to find alternative placements for children. What is important with the new school year is that 55,000 children who are in those 120 schools have alternative pathways to learning and don't drop out, can continue with their education. UNICEF is appealing for $46.3 million as its contribution to the national response. This involves our support to water and sanitation, to health, to psychosocial support for children, and to education.
And German authorities held talks with representatives of Libya's United Nations recognized government on Monday to address the internal situation across the country.
Even if, for now, the weapons have mostly fallen silent, it is a deceptive calm. Through the flow of arms on both sides from international backers, there remains a great danger of military escalation. We support the UN's main proposal that is first step process the disarmament and demilitarization of the city of Sirte. Libya's UN-recognized government of national accord strongly rejects the mission Irene, which looks good from outside but bad in reality, because as it is right now, it's only towards the unity government not to let her receive any help to counter the aggression, and it does not monitor the export of weapons and mercenary fighters by air and sea and via the Egyptian-Libyan territorial borders.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has noted that new presidential elections could take place in the event that a referendum is held to approve a new constitution. Following a meeting with workers of a truck factory in Belarus' capital, Minsk, President Lukashenko noted that political power could be redistributed in the country, but only through a due constitutional process and not by force through violent acts on the streets or foreign intervention. President Lukashenko also stressed his commitment to improving the welfare of the Belarusian population while calling on protesters to join his work agenda. The Nigerian army announced the liberation of 11 hostages in the Lake Chad Basin. The hostages have been taken by the Boko Haram forces earlier in August from the southeast region of Guesqueru. Among the 11 hostages, there were 3 women and 4 children. During the rescue operation, the Nigerian army also seized several weapons and ammunition. The border region between Niger and Nigeria is regularly threatened by Boko Haram and other terrorist groups that carry out hostage-taking for ransom. Thousands of people took the streets on Monday in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, demanding the transitional government speed up political reforms. Holding flags and banners calling for justice, peace, and reform of the security sector, demonstrators gathered in front of the Sudanese cabinet's headquarters in order to deliver a list of demands, including the formation of a legislative body. The protest took place on the occasion of the first anniversary of the constitutional declaration aimed at establishing a military-civilian coalition to lead a transitional sovereign council, following the overthrow of former Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has noted that issues of justice remain one of the most important tasks of his government, together with the modernization of state institutions.
The course of the revolution should be corrected. We are calling the military's presence in the government a clear and specific obstacle. There is nothing called a power-sharing agreement. This is an obstacle on the path of the revolution.
We are out today to continue the struggle to achieve the revolution demands: freedom, peace, and justice. Justice has not been served over the killing of protesters, and they are still free, those who killed them, and not being brought to justice.
United Nations authorities have condemned a car bombing attack that occurred at the beachfront Elite Hotel in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, on Sunday.
The fight against al-Shabaab and against all forms of violent extremism in Somalia must continue. The Secretary General reiterates the support and solidarity of the United Nations with the government and people of Somalia in their pursuit for peace, stability, and prosperity.
Mozambique assumed the rotating presidency of the Southern Africa Development Community on Monday, while reaffirming the organization's commitment to fighting terrorism and violent acts. Likewise, a message of solidarity was also extended to Mauritanian authorities following the recent oil spill that has provoked an environmental disaster.
Conducted an assessment of emerging security threats in the region. The findings show that while the security landscape in the SADC region remains stable, there are areas that require strengthening. Proposed recommendations to address the emerging threats were considered by the Organ Troika Summit on 14th August 2020, that is last Friday. In implementing the recommendations, priority will be placed on measures to combat terrorism, violent attacks, and cybercrime. 30, Summit expressed solidarity with the government and the people of Mauritius for the environmental disaster in its waters caused by a grounded ship, and they called upon SADC member states and the international community to support Mauritius in containing the disaster.
Authorities in Ghana commissioned and handed over the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area to the African Union this Monday, while calling on African governments for political commitment.
will require sustained political will and commitment from the highest level of executive authority in each country in respect of providing adequate budgetary resources to support the growth development of priority sectors, as well as creating the appropriate incentive and regulatory framework to attract investments from the private sector, domestic and foreign.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed more than 1.1 million COVID-19 cases in the continent this Monday. According to the latest figures, more than 25,000 COVID-19 deaths have been reported across Africa. South Africa remains the hardest hit country with over 587,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 12,000 deaths. Egypt ranks second with more than 96,000 infections and over 5,000 deaths. They are followed by Nigeria with a little more than 49,000 cases and just under 1,000 deaths. On a positive note, over 834,000 people are reported to have recovered from the virus across the African continent. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Do remember you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.